What's up? Matt Hill, Root the Circle Radio. uh, I wake up every morning with, for the past 2 years, African American Holocaust is first and foremost on my mind, and this thing we got 4th of July coming up. We call it Independence Day. That's white people celebrate independence. What's that got to do with the African American community? And it's 2021. They still have no economic independence. They still have no political independence. They still have no, social independence. They still have pretty much no independence at all. So, as I thought about it, thought about putting this, on my video blog or whatever. Thought people are going to be like, well, you're going to tell African Americans they shouldn't celebrate Independence Day? I mean, absolutely. Matter of fact, I would like to tell white people that we shouldn't be celebrating Independence Day. Because can we say we're independent if our brothers are not independent? The document that was legislated and amended after the Revolutionary War was fought. July 4th was the day the Declaration of Independence was signed. The Constitution was the resulting document of it. Well, the Constitution starts out, we the people. So can we people celebrate Independence Day if not all the people of this nation, especially those who have fought hardest to fulfill the principles of the Declaration of Independence, the African Americans, are not independent? It's Malcolm X said in 1963, it's always the Negro that's segregated, never the white man. You know what I mean? It's not turning African Americans off at the 4th of July. I'm trying to turn the white folks on to the truth that, Independence Day don't mean a goddamn thing to a black person. You know what I mean? They still have no independence. So it's not turning the African American off of it. They've never been turned on to independence. They fought harder for it. What do we know about it? We think 4th of July is cooking hot dogs and popping firecrackers. You know what I mean? African Americans, like Reverend Al Sharpton said, our votes dipped in blood. Our votes dipped in our ancestors. You know what I mean? It's we've had to fight for our vote. Everything that you say you understand is white folks about that Declaration of Independence. We still battle for it on a daily basis. It's like the Bible. African Americans have a little deeper understanding of Jesus Christ than the white man does. That's why their churches are a little more recognized as soul-filled. You know what I mean? It's on my Instagram. I made a little deal. It's got a picture of an enslaved African American sometime after the abolishment of slavery that us white folks were taught when slavery was abolished. You know what I mean? It's got shows its back with the scars from the whip upon it. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, what do we? What was Jesus Christ? What we like to talk about how he was whipped and flogged. We've been whipping and flogging the African Americans for 400 years in this country. You think that stopped? I've got another one on there at Instagram. Shows 4 white crackers whipping a black man in the street. We call that Rodney King. What's so powerful about that one? Well, we did that. That made international news. Rodney King did. The United States of America, where white men have been gathering around a helpless African American and whipping them at their whim and will. We've been doing that for 400 years in this country. You know what I mean? So it's we all didn't band together and say, man, that's wrong. It's not just police brutality. It's brutality against another race. We haven't ended slavery. There's 4 white crackers whipping a black field Negro in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? We justified it. We took the side of the unjust and immoral law. You know what I mean? Dr. King said there's 2 types of laws, just and unjust. said, we have a legal and a moral responsibility to obey just laws, but conversely, we have a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Well, any law that allows a people to be beaten at women will by another race and have that wholly accepted, that's unjust. That makes us unjust people, you know. We shouldn't have gathered around and tried to justify it with, well, he was high on crack, or he was this, he was that. It's all hearsay, you know what I mean? Was he tried for all that? Who knows? What we know is that four field crackers beat a black man in the street with whips that give no give. You know, those are billy clubs. We watched it. We might have seen police brutality. African American watched Rodney King. They seen something different than the white man seen. They seen a reoccurring nightmare. What we call black history is really a black contemporary, because it doesn't stop out there in the streets. It doesn't stop out there in those impoverished neighborhoods, you know what I mean? It doesn't stop out there in that airtight cage of poverty, you know? And we're foolish to think that things like Rodney King or George Floyd are a random occurrence. There's a reason NWA did fuck the police. It's because it's an everyday occurrence on every block, in every city in this nation we choose to call free, because we are allowed to live freely. As white folks, we're 68% of the population. That we make up less than 10% of the prison population. It's easy for us to say we're free people. Now, 14% of the population, making up from 52 to 90% of the prison population, might not have the same feelings of independence as we do. Can we call ourselves a nation of we the people if we accept their enslavement? If we accept going to schools in what are days like Juneteenth? Those are days for the white media to market the African American Holocaust. What have we turned the Black Lives Matter deal into? A media frenzy of marketing. We only want to market the struggle of the African American. Why fix it when we can make so much money off of it? What's street knowledge? What's the rap game? We learn we can make a lot of money off them telling the truth of their people. You know what I mean? We don't want to fix it. We don't cure cancer because there's a lot of money in cancer research, a lot of money in cancer treatment, you know? So I think it's time for a new Independence Day. Let's have a real black holiday. What's Martin Luther King Jr. Day? It was a day a great man was born, yes. But we haven't fulfilled his dream. We haven't fulfilled his dream by no means. It's 2021. This man asked, he said, I have a dream that one day in this nation, my 4 little children won't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And here we are saying, Black Lives Matter. Well, no white man should be saying Black Lives Matter. Because one of the greatest Americans in history, Martin Luther King Jr., asked that we not judge his children by the color of his skin, yet we still choose to do so. What's a real black holiday? Be an Independence Day for the African American. An Independence Day, a day of signed sovereignty. That this nation that enslaved and sold these people for 400 years in this country accepted their sovereignty, surrendered to the idea that we're the ones that are wrong and they are the righteous. That's a true black holiday. Martin Luther King Jr. was to come back from the skies like Jesus Christ, like we pray that he does. What would Martin Luther King Jr. think? Would he be happy? Oh boy, you made a national holiday out of my birthday. You didn't recognize my fucking dream at all. You can give a shit about my goddamn dream, but thank you for recognizing my birthday. You know, fuck my birthday. Fuck these statues you putting up. Fuck naming as I was driving out to North Tulsa the other day, you know, I noticed 244 going to that airtight cage of poverty is named Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Highway or something like that. Is that what he'd want? He wanted a highway for his people out of the airtight cage of poverty, not a highway leading into it. Well, that's the only routes we give to these people. We keep that ruthless circle going. We keep them in that airtight cage of poverty. We make a lot of profit off their poverty. think he'd want his birthday to be recognized, or do you think he would come back and say, my people have their sovereignty? They're recognized as we the people in this nation. My fight, my struggles, my nightmare has been recognized. Because he was the voice of millions. He wasn't the voice of one. There's no power in one. There's no such thing. There's no power in one. One person can make no change. One escaped slave was a dead man. Took 1,000 escaped slaves to be free men. It's time for a day. What's Black History Month? To us, it's another marketing ploy. Some of these television channels can market heavily. It's not so important we learn Black history as we need to learn the Black contemporary. That there's been no progress in that airtight cage of poverty. They still hold 0.5% of the U.S. wealth. They've held that same 0.5% of the U.S. wealth since the known abolishment of slavery in the 1800s. It's time we learn a Black contemporary, and that's what Eric Wright and NWA set out to do. It wasn't to market their people. It was to get the street knowledge out there. Man, we're still living in slavery. Armies of white men are still coming. Vicious mobs of white men still coming in our communities, hanging our mothers at whim, and our fathers at will, drowning our Black brothers and sisters, hate-filled policemen, kicking, cursing, and often killing my Black brothers and sisters. The vast majority of my 20 million Negro brothers and sisters are still suffocating in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society. NWA come out to say it's not Black history, it's a Black contemporary. It's only history to you white folks because you teach it as history. What you teach as history is our present. So, I'm not here to turn the African American away from Independence Day. I'm here to get white folks to raise up with the African Americans so they have an Independence Day they can celebrate. They can say, like Martin Luther King Jr. said in his Dream speech, the old Negro, spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. They're still waiting on that. Martin Luther King Jr. said, perhaps it's easy to say wait. You haven't felt the stinging darts of segregation, We have never felt those. It's always the Negro that's segregated, never the white man. We don't know what those segregating darts feel like. We don't know what it's like to be unwelcome in a community. We as white folks believe we welcome them, but we're the first to lock our doors, first to pick up the phones, call the police when we see an African American just trying to make a living coming up and down our block. We don't know what it's like. We've never had a stinging dart of segregation. We don't know what a degrading sense of nobodiness is. Martin Luther King Jr. said any law that degrades the human personality is an unjust law. Segregation is an unjust law. We can still keep the African Americans wholly segregated, It's acceptable to dress like an African American in the nightclub, speak Ebonics. We're macking on women, but when it comes to the courthouse or the job displacement centers, all of a sudden we don't accept their culture. All of a sudden we don't accept their language. All of a sudden we don't accept their dress. Though we do it in our everyday life. We think it's a style or a fad or a fashion for them. It's their way of life. Like Snoop Dogg said, if you see walking, you better see crippin'. It ain't just a dance, it's a way of living. Like he said, this is how NIGGA's living. This is our real life. It's a fantasy for y'all. It's a style for y'all. It's a fashion for y'all. This is how we really live. This is the product of that airtight cage of poverty. We're a product of white hate, white avarice, white supremacy, white segregation. Let's prepare this country. Not of the thought of Jesus Christ coming back, but Martin Luther King Jr. coming back. What would he say? Not only tear down these walls, the penitentiary system, these walls of this airtight cage of poverty. Tear down these statues and use the money you're using to put those statues up to fund the political committees, to tear down these walls, to break these oppressive systems, these systems of segregation. We've took the Jim Crow era signs down, but we still have that Jim Crow era mindset. We still subliminally segregate the African American. Would stand with our black brothers and sisters and fight for black sovereignty. We did so with the Native Americans. Why do we reject the idea that the African Americans deserve the same thing? You know, they're 14% of the population. You get every one of them to vote. And if they don't have the blessings and the backing of the middle white moderate, then they'll never gain their independence. You know, they can't integrate themselves with we the people until they achieve their sovereignty. They must build their own people. The cracker can never teach the slave how to live. For one, he doesn't know how to live because he accepted being a cracker all that time. And the slave will never accept the teachings of somebody that justified taking a whip to his back. So, when you know you have a righteous way of thinking, but yet you're forced to submit to a evil way of thinking, because the way we think is nothing short of evil. We don't accept the Independence Day means nothing to an African American. You're an American if you don't accept the 4th of July. African Americans, no. We're an American if we accept it. We're saying that the people that built this nation aren't part of we the people. It's not a day about hot dogs. We don't know that. We think it's about hot dogs and firecrackers. America, America. It ain't about that. Why don't we understand that? Because we've never felt those stinging darts of segregation. We've never been at the cracker's whip the way the African Americans have. We don't know those stinging darts of segregation. We don't know what it's like to smother in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society. We don't understand these things. We don't understand about vicious mobs, be it policemen, be it just white folks, rolling up in your neighborhoods, hanging, killing, beating, cursing, incarcerating your people, your women will, and have the whole country behind the enemy and not behind the righteous. I have a dream that Martin Luther King Jr. would descend from the heavens and say they recognize my dream, not my black brothers and sisters. My dream was their dream. But the middle white moderate has come to my regrettable conclusion is the Negro's greatest stumbling block, not the Ku Klux Klan or the white council member. The middle white moderate, middle white America, has accepted my brothers and sisters into we the people. Their national holiday is not a day a black man was born, but the day black independence was born. Their national holiday is not the day a black man was born, but the day black freedom in this country was born. Their national holiday wasn't the day a black man was born, but the day the African Americans gained their sovereignty in this country. All recordings and works are dedicated to Eric Wright, Eazy-E.